But Simone Inzaghi is unbeaten in all 7 cup finals since he's been a manager.
He's a cuppy coach.
They call him the King of Cups, don't they?
The King of Cups. What do you reckon, Andy? Is there a chance the King of Cups can do it again?
I think, as I was saying on OTC yesterday, I think the one variable that understandably hasn't been considered widely in this, because City are just so good and have been so good for the last 3 or 4 months, is the fact that the difference between good Inter and bad Inter is bigger than any other decent-sized club I can think of, or decent-sized team I can think of in Europe this season. When they're good, they're exceptional this season. Having said that, they started the season looking as if they were going to make a challenge for the title, end up losing 12 league games, get to Easter looking like they're not even going to make the top 4 until they have this little run recently. I mean, they're in the best nick they could possibly be.
And they're in good form.
Yeah.
But, also, the fact that he's won all these cups suggests that the good Inter turns up for the finals, right?
Oh, and Lazio as well. He's won some of these cups with as well. They do like a 3-5-2. I mean, we're sort of grasping at straws here, but we're trying to look at it at both angles. And some have said, against a 3-5-2, Man City have not been as potent as they have been against some other sides. I mean, you're looking at the Brentford game, and some are saying against Spurs. So you are grasping at straws really for Inter's sake.
Yeah.
But you look at that Inter side, there's some experience and quality in there. Obviously, that's why they're in the final.
Well, this is it, isn't it? And they've got to use everything they have left in the tank in this one game.
Yes.
It's not a million miles away from José Mourinho's Inter, where he had all those players at a good time with what they essentially had left. But it's a harder.
Mourinho's
task,
Inter had a lot more quality than this side. That is to not.
But they were driven by the same thing, weren't they?
Yeah, the fact that
it's now or it's never.
Yeah, the fact that time's running out. And it's totally unsustainable. I mean, it's like the feeling you had with Mourinho walking away after 2010. It was like when Gabriel Burns walking away from that building in The Usual Suspects, isn't it? Like the minute he walks out of it, everything totally collapses. And I kind of wonder that with this into next season, because they're going to have to make a few big sales. Not going to be able to keep quite a few of the high-earning players, like Lukaku won't be there next season unless something massively changes or gets taken over, or a massive financial injection. So, like Jim says, it is now or never.
How busy is Marcelo Brozovic going to be, though?
Well, it depends, because he's not always been starting over the last couple of months.
I think he will, though, in this game.
Well, he should.
Yes.
I mean, if you've got someone who can set the tone of the game and run 16 kilometres.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't
that's
you
going to be
include
so crucial, isn't it, against the City team?
Yeah.
Because Man City are going to dominate possession, essentially whoever they're playing, which is such a rare thing.
And so don't waste it when you have got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to chase the game. So why not have a player whose key strength is that he seems to not mind running a marathon in every game.
And surely an experienced, battle-hardy Croatian midfielder is what you want against the Man City. If it's either it's the sort of the Uruguay of Europe. I know they've often been called. Well, I suppose it was former Yugoslavia with the Brazilians of Europe. But I think nowadays Croatia is like the Uruguay of Europe.
But isn't that the biggest argument for City not winning this final? That if you go back over the last decade plus, every Champions League winning side has had a Croatian in it. City don't, of course.
Chelsea just got one in there.
Yeah.
He came on for...
Yeah. I mean, City are getting themselves one from next season, it looks like. But...
Getting Chelsea's one, yeah.
Well, if they can sign Kovacic by tomorrow, then maybe they'll be all right.
It is interesting going into this final, because for the first time in one of these bigger games, I think much has been said about Pep tinkering and so on. The fact is that he always tinkers throughout the season, so he actually doesn't change. People often think he changes for the final. He doesn't change for the final sometimes. He just carries on the tinkering, and he gets a little bit too much, although we've only seen him in one European final with Manchester City, of course. But we kind of know what they're going to do and how they're going to turn up, don't we?
Well, they've played in such a way that he can't tinker, really, can he? It's very.
Is that
clear.
their motivation for playing like that? Right?
Almost.
We all just play out of our skins. He can't change any of us.
Well, I mean, almost to a point. You know how when a team wins a league and they've got either, whether it's the FA Cup or when they win the league, with time to spare rather, and it's either the FA Cup or European final on the horizon. You always talk about players wanting to play themselves into contention.
Yeah,
and actually because. I feel like a lot of the Man City players, because they know what he's like and how he likes to tinker, even the bankers have thought, well, shit, actually, I can't really let up here because I don't know what's going on in his head.
But you know what? I think the players are doing the tinkering rather than him. because the City team picks itself over the last couple of months.
Yeah.
But of course, it can express itself in so many different forms. So they're like, if we show several faces to the way that we play, he doesn't actually have to change the 11. Well, okay. I mean, there was a really interesting article in a Spanish newspaper this week about it was like a 1,200-word job on the evolution of John Stones. Well, because he's really caught the imagination of people all across Europe. So it's
interesting you say that's very interesting you bring him in, because if you're Simone Inzaghi and you have experienced quality midfielders at your disposal, we've mentioned Brozovic, if indeed he does start. Barella is another one who, he can do, Mkhitaryan as well, played in big games and whatnot. Would you target Stones? And because Stones has played really well. Now, yes, Stones was there against Real Madrid in that amazing game, and Stones has been playing European football. But he's also been playing in the Premier League a lot, and against Manchester United in the FA Cup and blah, 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 blah. So, and those sides are a little bit weaker this season, you would say. Is he a man that Inter will say, do you know what, let's see what he's made of? I know you've got your Spanish article and some of the great games and all that kind of stuff, but
you used to drop a bollock all the time.
Yeah.
Other teams have tried to bring that bollock out of him. And he's just got better at
Is he holding it in his hand? And it's like, come on,
it's
just
not
pop
strictly
one out.
him.
Grab him by the wrist. That spot so we can get him to drop it.
Yeah.
I thought you said it like it was like a dog with the paper in his mouth. Not hit him on the nose and then drop it. But I think that's why he's in that position, because he's got better at dealing with that. I mean, I think you're right. Obviously, that's something to target. But I suppose they'll have to look at how other teams have failed to do that adequately and then riff on that, really. But
also, it's a weird area of the pitch to target, right? Because it's not like he's not going to be covered by the defenders.
Well, yeah, I mean,
he has basically 4 options to pass the ball to, even if he doesn't turn around. And one of them's his goalkeeper, who is probably the best of those 5 at playing with the ball. So I think he'll be all right.
Yeah,
interesting.
It's nice.
Inter do have 2 up front, though. We think that's what they'll go for.
This is the other thing I wanted to check.
Yeah.
Will Lukaku start? Because,
No.
Yeah, okay.
It's very unlikely. It's more likely to be Dzeko and Martinez.
Yeah.
But it feels like a lot of the build-up, I mean, maybe it's because of the English perspective here, but a lot of the build-up has been around him in Lukaku.
But if you look at it, the minutes he's played in Europe, it is a lot fewer than Dzeko and Martinez.
But he's really hit form lately, hasn't he, Lukaku? He's contributed a lot in the minutes he has played. So that is certainly going to be part of the narrative. I think he'll come on at some point, surely.
He will. And going back to is what we were saying about them having a really good bench and a really useful bench that can actually change the game. But going back to what Marcus was saying before, actually, Guardiola's just doing the simple things, picking the same team and getting them to do it. And I think if you look at the overall standard in the Premier League this season, I don't think is particularly great.
No, I
the
agree
overall standard in European football, if you look at the very best teams, is not particularly great this season.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit like in League 2, when you start the season and you think there's a load of basket cases, if we just don't do anything stupid.
Well, I think you're absolutely right there, Andy. And I think that maybe that's why some are not comparing it favourably to other trebles, most notably Manchester United, of course, because that's the one we go back. I've heard 1 or 2 people go, well, they've got a favourable draw. It's not a draw. They've got, I suppose they've got a favourable tie in the final against Inter. One could argue that Inter
they have beaten Bayern and Real Madrid.
And I think that's the point. That's exactly what I was going to say, Andy. That you look at the way they've done it, and I think again the ease in which they've done it, you can mistakenly think, oh well, it's not been that difficult. That second leg semi-final against Real Madrid is one of the great performances in football. I go as far to
agreed.
say in football. You don't even have to say European football.
Yeah.
It was astonishingly good. That performance is as close to perfection as you'll ever see. The first leg against Bayern when they win 3-0. There was a couple of dodgy moments in the second leg, but the first
they had to play well for like about 15 minutes to absolutely smash one of the best teams in Europe.
Indeed. Yeah. And for Man City, they are only 2/3 of the way there. We do have a good side in Inter who they need to beat. If they were not to do it, then I would think, surely, when are we going to do this? And I think that there is such that sense of history, determination. The fact they're all saying, 1 more to go at the FA Cup final.
It feels like their time, doesn't it?
It really does.
In every conceivable sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, Inter have a chance. They're a good team. We've discussed that and how that may manifest, but they go in as heavy favourites for good reason. Everything seems right. The momentum, the form, the squad. Guardiola, the fact that they've had this situation where he decided to not play Fernandinho, as we touched on earlier. I doubt he'll make a silly decision like that, as we've seen him do in Europe. I expect he's learned not to tinker like that at this point. It's bound to be theirs.
Edin Dzeko's in to stand in the way.
Edin Dzeko's in to do stand in the way. And 3 former Man United boys as well. So.
Yeah, is that what José Mourinho would whisper in Pep's ear? It's like he did that time, just before they go out.
I'm sure he is when he's sleeping this week.
Yeah, right enough.
Cheers for watching another fantastic clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Make sure you click like on this video and subscribe to the channel, which means you will not miss a single upload.